Not all pain feels the same, and there are wounds that carry a particularly unsettling feeling, not because they are too big, but because you cannot find a reason to accept them. Everything happens in a way that makes you freeze, unable to react in time, and what follows is only a long, lingering silence. You don't remember doing anything wrong, and you don't see any sign that it was coming. Everything before that may have felt normal, even good. And that is exactly what makes the impact heavier, because you had no chance to prepare or protect yourself. The feeling of being hurt in this situation is not just an emotion, it feels like a fracture in the way you understand people. You begin to question how you see others, even the things you once believed were true. You sit there, thinking, trying to piece everything back together. But the more you think, the less it makes sense. There is no clear logic, no satisfying explanation, and that is what keeps you stuck in your own thoughts, unable to move forward. What unsettles you is not only what they did, but the lack of responsibility in how they face it. They can go on with their lives as if nothing ever happened, while you are still trying to understand what actually did. You begin to realize that this kind of pain comes without fairness. There is no balance between cause and effect. You gave your emotions, your trust, your kindness, but what you received in return does not match any of it. That sense of unfairness does not just hurt you, it makes you feel disrespected on a deeper level, not in words, but in the feeling that your worth was easily overlooked or dismissed. You didn't just lose something, you lost the sense of safety in trusting others. And this lasts longer than the event itself, because it shapes the way you see every relationship that comes after. A part of you wants to hold on to the pain as proof, not to feed it, but to remind yourself that it was real, that you didn't imagine it, and that it mattered to you. When someone talks about forgiveness, you don't feel relief, you feel pressure, as if you are being asked to let go too soon, while inside, you still haven't had the time to understand or process it. Forgiveness in this situation does not feel like a natural choice. It feels like an external demand, a standard you are expected to reach, even when you are not truly ready. You start to associate forgiveness with denying your own experience, as if by forgiving, what happened no longer matters. And that makes you resist, because you know it was neither small nor meaningless. Your emotions are not something that needs to be fixed immediately. They are a reasonable response to what happened. You are not angry without reason. You are not holding on blindly. You are trying to protect yourself in the only way you know. There is a quiet tension inside you every day. One part wants to move forward, to feel lighter, to let go. Another part holds on tightly, afraid that letting go would mean accepting something that should never be accepted. And so you stand between two difficult choices. Continue holding on to the pain to protect your sense of right and wrong, or begin to consider letting go and face the feeling that you might be weakening your own stance. When you look at the way Jesus speaks about forgiveness, the most unsettling part is not the teaching itself, but the standard behind it. He sets no conditions, asks for no change from the one who caused the hurt, and that goes completely against human instinct, which always wants fairness before letting go. You are used to thinking that forgiveness needs a reasonable cause. The other person should admit they were wrong, understand what they did, show that they are worthy of being forgiven. But in the way Jesus sees it, none of those things seem to be the deciding factors. The image on the cross is not a gentle moment or a simple symbol. It is the peak of injustice, of pain, of betrayal. And right in that moment, forgiveness is spoken, not after things have settled, but in the very height of the wound. There is no sign that those who caused that pain deserve to be forgiven. They did not apologize, did not stop, did not change. And yet, that did not change his decision, and that is exactly the part that is hardest to accept. You may feel that it makes no sense, even that it is unfair. Why should you let go when the other person has not taken responsibility? Why choose forgiveness when everything is still there, unresolved? The way Jesus approaches forgiveness is not based on the actions of others, but on your own inner state. That means the decision to forgive no longer depends on what the other person does next. And that creates a clear paradox. Forgiveness is no longer a reaction, but becomes a deliberate choice. Not because the other person deserves it, but because you no longer want to remain bound to what they did. You begin to realize that if you wait for others to change before forgiving, you are placing your freedom in their hands, and that keeps you stuck in a state you do not truly control. Forgiveness in this way does not reduce the seriousness of the hurt. It does not say that it was small or that it can simply be ignored. It only changes where you stand in relation to that pain. Instead of staying in a passive place, waiting, you move into a different position where you have the power to decide how you respond. It does not make things easier, but it means you are no longer stuck in the same way. Many people think forgiveness is something directed outward, toward others. But in this view, it is something directed inward, about what you choose to keep carrying and what you choose to release. That does not mean you have to feel okay right away. Forgiveness is not an emotion that appears naturally. It is a decision, often made while your emotions are still complicated and not fully resolved. You do not have to wait until you are no longer angry to begin thinking about forgiveness. In fact, the process can happen at the same time, and sometimes the decision to let go is what slowly changes how you feel. In this context, forgiveness is not an act of weakness. It requires clarity about what you are doing and why you are doing it. Not to prove anything to others, but to stop being pulled down by what has already happened. In the end, the hardest part is not understanding this idea, but accepting to live it out. Because it asks you to let go of the need to see others pay before you allow yourself to feel lighter, and that goes against almost every natural reflex you have. Forgiveness is often misunderstood from the very beginning. Many people think that if you forgive, you are saying it was not serious. But in reality, you can still look directly at what happened and call it what it is, without holding on to bitterness. You do not have to pretend that everything is okay. You do not need to edit your memories to make them easier to bear. Forgiveness does not ask you to rewrite the story. It only asks you to change the way you carry it. Trust, once broken, does not automatically return just because you choose to forgive. Those are two completely different things. One is about your inner state. The other is about the other person's behavior and consistency. You can let go of anger without giving them access again. It may sound strange, but it is the clear line between healing and hurting yourself one more time. Not every relationship needs to be restored. Some endings make sense, and keeping your distance is not a failure. It is a way of protecting what is left of you. You do not owe anyone a second chance just because you have forgiven. A second chance is something that has to be rebuilt from the beginning, not automatically given back just because your feelings have changed. Forgiveness is not a signal that you are ready to go back to how things were. It only shows that you no longer want to carry the same level of negativity as before. And that has nothing to do with whether that person remains in your life or not. Many people confuse forgiveness with reconciliation. Reconciliation requires both sides. It requires change. It requires effort. Forgiveness does not. It can happen entirely from one side, without any response from the other. You can accept that it happened without accepting the way it happened. This is important because it allows you to stay true to your values without having to trade them just to feel lighter. Holding boundaries after forgiveness is not being rigid, it is being clear. You know what is not acceptable, and you do not want to place yourself in a position where you have to endure it again. Anger may fade over time, but the lesson remains, and that lesson helps you make different choices in the future, not based on fear, but on understanding. You do not have to prove to anyone that you have forgiven. There is no external standard to measure it. It is an inner process, and sometimes others may not even realize it has happened. Some doors once closed should remain closed. Not because you are still angry, but because you understand the consequences of opening them again. This is not negativity, it is clarity. Forgiveness does not make you naive. If understood correctly, it makes you clearer about your own values. You no longer react out of impulse, but act from a place of deeper awareness. In the end, what you keep is not the person who hurt you, but the right to decide who you will become after it. And sometimes that decision is very simple. You do not go back, but you also do not carry the weight anymore.